All right, let's get started here. I will call to order the City of West Bend Licensing Board for September 14th at 6:25 p.m. I notice that we have a quorum. We'll start with approval of the licensing board minutes for August 3rd, 2020.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. It's been motioned seconded. Any discussion or corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Moving on to agenda items for consideration. Item number 2, appointment of agent Jillian Carney, Ultramart Foods, LLC, Pick and Save number 430 at 1629 South Main Street.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. It's been motioned seconded. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item number 3, a secondhand article dealer license renewal for Walmart Stores East LP, Walmart number 2658 at 1515 West Paradise Drive.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. It's been motioned second. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And then finally, number 4, a secondhand article dealer license renewal for GameStop Inc., GameStop number 6614, 1325 West Paradise Drive.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. It's been motioned second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Seeing no further business before the licensing board, I'll adjourn by the call of the chair.
I would like to call to order the Board of Public Works. We have 4 items on the agenda. The first item is approval of minutes from the Public Works meeting, August 17, 2020.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Wait,
Motion
Mr.
carried.
Chairman,
Yes.
please go back for discussions and corrections.
You have question?
Corrections.
Okay. What's the correction, please?
The attendee names need to strike the mayor. Mayor's not a member of the Public Works Board. Should not be listed as an attendee. There was also a item to correct this from the previous set of minutes, and that should have shown up in this set of minutes as well. Same correction.
Okay. Stephanie, you got the notes of that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. All right. With that motion, then we'll have all the motion has been approved, and with the exception of the changes to the meeting, motion is carried. Item number 2, permission to award professional design services contract for universally inclusive playground design for Ridge Run Park. Mr. Mike, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Excuse me. During the summer of 2019, our department began working with a resident group of parents to design and construct an all-abilities playground in the city of West Bend. After deciding on a location and elements for the playground, a request for proposal was sent out for design of a universally inclusive playground to be hopefully constructed in the south end of Ridge Run Park, near the restrooms on the south end of the property there. A little background on a universal inclusive playground. This is a facility that includes everyone. It will be a sensory-rich experience that enables children and adults of all abilities to interact with each other. During the design process, we will consider people's physical, sensory, social, communications, and cognitive abilities. This playground will not segregate children or adults of any ability. The playground will include a rubberized board-and-place surface, accessible locations for parking, and general access to this facility. 6 proposals were received for this project. A review panel of 8 members of the parent group, many of them are here this evening, 2 staff persons, and an alderperson and park commissioner, Megan Kennedy, was also part of the interview process, the review process. The proposals were reviewed, and we interviewed 3 of the design firms. Based on proposal submittals, interviews, relevant project work, positive references, and price, the review committee recommends award of the design contract to Play by Design for the sum not to exceed $30,000. This contract will be funded with $15,000 from park impact fees and a generous $15,000 donation from the Friends of West Bend Parks. The intent of the parent group is to raise the funds necessary to construct a playground through donations. The proposed playground is anticipated to cost between $500,000 and $1 million. The design itself that we're asking about tonight for the $30,000, it's not just a design we're looking for. It's the concept plans, the construction drawings, engineering work relating to the project, cost estimates, and marketing materials. So when we say $30,000 for a design, it's not just a design. There's many components that are also in with this $30,000. So the generic term design includes all of those. The design work, this $30,000 working with the parent group, design or play by design, this work would start in September and be completed in mid-December of this year. And then after that point in time, either our department or the volunteer group, the parent group, can then start their fundraising campaign. So, thank you.
All right, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, any questions? Yes, Alderman Dolnick.
Mike, I was just curious, there are such differences in the costs, and I'm not questioning the decision because the committee looked at this, but I was just curious, why were there such dramatic differences?
Part of it is, so right now, we are looking at just, like I mentioned, the design, the concept plans, the drawings, and all those items. Play by Design is hoping that we go through this $30,000 process, we go through this design process. Ultimately, we will hire them then for the construction of this project. So that in itself would be part of the fundraising campaign. So their $30,000 investment today could be a much larger investment in the future if we actually build this thing and we work with them side by side for that construction. So that's part of it. Some of the other firms are engineering companies and things of that nature, and I'm going to be quite honest, their overhead's probably a lot more. Play by Design, this is what they do. This is exactly what they do. Some of the other firms, they do civil engineering, they do all kinds of different other activities. Are they good companies? Absolutely. And we interviewed several of them. Very impressive. If we would have worked with them, we would have been very fortunate. But Play by Design, honestly, this is what they do every day, and I think they wanted to work. So. Yep, no, good question, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Alderman Allen.
Yes, did you make any attempt to go out to other facility, all abilities facilities in the area? I mean, there's one down in Jackson.
Yep. These folks in the audience, they've been to every facility in the state of Wisconsin and probably beyond that. They've really done a ton of research. As far as staff goes, myself, Jay, our staff, we've been to Port Washington, we've been to Franklin, Waukesha, the one in Jackson. The one thing with a project like this, we have never done a universal inclusive playground. Have we done playgrounds in West Bend? Absolutely. Have we done, I'll say, handicap accessible playgrounds? Sure. Not a universally inclusive playground. This is really something specific, something unique. So again, we don't want to make maybe the same mistakes as someone else did, down the line a couple of years ago, things like that. We've talked to the folks in Franklin, and not only just Franklin staff, we've talked to their volunteer group and we've met with them. Port Washington, same thing. We've talked to staff, we've talked to their support group, their parent group. We have their fundraising campaigns. We have anything and everything they've done, we have it. Our parent group has it. The game plan is set. And again, I mean, Mark, it's a great question because we've never done this before. We wanted to make sure we did our research and not just looking at something online. Physically, let's go out and take a look at some of these locations. I know there's another all-inclusive playground in Racine that we've been wanting to look at, but we've kind of waited to travel into that area of the state. So.
All right, any other questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Item number 3, approval of long-term storm water maintenance agreement for Cedar Community, Cedar Ridge Campus. Good evening, Max.
Good evening, thank you. This item is for an approval of long-term stormwater maintenance agreement. This is for the development of Cedar Community, Cedar Ridge Campus. So you have seen an agreement for this property already because last year they were granted a stormwater management permit, and this is the type of agreement that goes to ensure that they will properly maintain the stormwater management facilities on their property. So they already have an approved agreement. However, after everything was approved, the developer came to the city and proposed to handle their stormwater with different facilities, different drainage patterns. And so we reviewed those plans and issued a new stormwater management permit. So they will build things a little differently. And they were granted the stormwater management permit. So now we want to have this new agreement with them to ensure that they will maintain the new proposed facilities to function properly. So this is the agreement that we recommend the city approve with the developer. And then once we do so, the next item will be to cancel the old agreement that will not apply because things have changed.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, any questions for Max? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 4, termination of agreement for Cedar Community, Cedar Ridge Campus. Max?
Thank you again. So as I was describing earlier, this is the agreement that we want to terminate now that we're going to have the new agreement.
Motion to terminate?
Second.
All right, any questions? If not, we have a motion on favor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Max. Being no further business before the Board of Public Works, I adjourn.
I will call to order the Board of Finance, starting with the approval of minutes. The Finance Committee regular meeting, August 17th, 2020 meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Do we have any questions or discussion on this?
Yes, same corrections with the Board of Public Works and also to the previous meeting.
Stephanie, can you note that? Okay, perfect. All right. Any other questions or discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. All right, we have 9 items on the agenda for consideration. So we're going to start with the resolution authorizing the transfer of park trust fees for the universally inclusive playground with Mike.
Thank you. Again, our department has worked closely with the All Abilities Playground team, developing the request for proposal for design for a universal inclusive playground out at Ridge Run Park. Play by Design was chosen as a company to develop this project. The cost of services for the design is $30,000. Again, the cost of services include concept plans, construction drawings, cost estimates, and marketing materials that the design team and the volunteers can use for fundraising. The West Bend Friends of Park and Recreation have committed $15,000 towards the design process. We are requesting approval to transfer $15,000 from the Park Trust fees account to be used for this design. The current Park Trust account balance at the end of June was $290,830. This fund is comprised of fees paid by new housing development and is designed for new park development. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to
Motion to
approve.
approve.
Second? Do we have a second?
Second. Sure.
Any questions or discussion on this? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, that carries. The third item is the resolution to accept donations to the Park and Rec Forestry Department with Mike again.
Thank you. Our department is requesting permission to accept the following donations. $1,200 donated by First Bank Financial Center, now Bank 59, for movie night in the park in June of this year. $2,500 donated by Fleet and Farm for sponsorship of the 2021 Dirty Ninja Mud Run for Kids. $1,250 donated by Regalware for sponsorship of the 2021 Dirty Ninja Mud Run for Kids. A boardwalk for a bike trail within Glacier Blue Hills Park, valued at $950, donated by Gears, which is the local bike club. Also, a $20,000 donation by the Early Risers Kiwanis for the Library Recreation Center in the lower level of the library. A $21 donation by various residents at the municipal archery range to be used for the archery range. $500 donation by Bob's Main Street Auto and Towing for sponsorship of the 2020 movie night in the park. $1,000 donated by Bank 59 for sponsorship of movie in the park, August of 2020. Disc golf instruction. Josh Ham from Riverside Disc Golf Shop provided 2 in-person sessions for the Lac Loran Conservancy Youth Adventure Camp. That donation is valued at $50. A $15,000 donation by the West Bend Friends of Park Recreation for design costs for the Universal Inclusive Playground. A $330 donation by Pound in the park for recreation programming. And a $50 donation by Laughing Mountain Popcorn for movie in the park in August of 2020. We really appreciate each of these donations, and many of these groups and individuals also support our Parks Department and the City of West Bend with a lot of volunteer hours throughout the year. So again, West Bend would certainly be a different community if we didn't have such generous people. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all those amazing and generous donations to all of our sponsors. Do I have a resolution to accept?
Motion to accept.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, carries. The fourth is a resolution for urban forestry grants, Mike.
Thank you. Our department is requesting a resolution for a Department of Natural Resources urban forestry grant. This is a 50-50 grant with a maximum application of $25,000. We will definitely be applying for the full $25,000 for this grant. This grant will support West Bend's urban forestry operations for responding to emerald ash borer, beginning the process of updating our 25-year-old urban forestry master plan, and support new community educational outreach programs. The new program will include plant identification tags along the Riverwalk, the parks in the downtown, and our 18th Avenue street tree demonstration. One of our goals is to help our residents identify different plants and different trees and things like that throughout their own community. So if they're losing ash trees in their backyard, or if they want to do some re-landscaping or anything like that, they can physically go online. We'll have an interactive map online with all these locations. They can look at that, print off a map key, go downtown, go to the 18th Avenue street tree demo, go take a look at what these trees, what they look like, how they grow, something that they might like. So we're trying to provide our residents with some kind of an outreach or educational opportunity here so they can see kind of what's out there, what's in their community, what they might like, what they might not like. Also part of this urban forestry grant is updating our 25-year-old master plan. What is included in the urban forestry master plan: approved, unapproved street tree list, current and future maintenance of our urban forestry, how and when do we prune our street trees, what we are doing, are we doing this the right way? In the urban forestry master plan, one option is we could hire a consultant to do it for about $35,000, or we can spread it out over about a 3-year plan, 3-year time frame, and we can try and do it all in-house. We basically started the last 2 years, we updated our street tree inventory. This year we want to do like the approved and unapproved street tree list and things like that. So all these components that go into an urban forestry master plan, we pretty much started it like 2 years ago, and we're hoping that maybe DNR funding can help support and ease some of the financial burden for some of these items. So we're really not starting any new programs that are going to cost the city more money in the future or things like that. Again, one good example, several years ago, urban forestry grant just like this helped us buy new tablets for our staff to go out and update our inventory. 2005, we hired a contractor for about $37,000 to do our initial inventory. We can do that in-house. We can do some of those things in-house. So that's what we're looking for with this grant proposal. So for like this grant and any other grant, we need a resolution showing support for us to apply for it. Thank you.
Do we have a motion to
Resolve.
accept the resolution?
Move.
Yep, okay. Second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions on that?
Megan?
Yes.
Yeah. Mike, I just want to thank your department for doing this. I think this is a huge asset for the public. If they want to get some trees, I think it's an awesome idea to go see what a tree looks like so they can get a the right tree and what they're anticipating, and your staff for putting this together. A great job.
Thanks,
Really
John. I'll
appreciate
definitely
that.
pass it along.
Thank you.
All right, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, we have a resolution for the correction of the 2019 taxes for mid-state amusement games. I believe Jeff Yoder is here to tell us about this.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. The resolution our office has submitted before you is a correction of taxes for 2019 for mid-state amusement games. There are 3 parcel numbers, but it is all the same company. There's 3 different locations. 2 of them are in TIFs. The summary of this would be that the property owner contacted our office and there was a dispute whether or not the equipment was taxable. And after seeking legal counsel, it is determined that this is exempt machinery on all 3 of these accounts.
Okay.
Are there any questions?
Questions for Jeff? Go ahead, Jed.
Yes.
On all 3 of these, kind of a general question.
Yes.
Is this fairly routine that there would be 1 or more corrections that pop up due to an error?
Yes, every year we usually have 1 or 2, not every year, but it is not too uncommon. This is a little different. The statutes did change. Some personal property was exempted in 2018, and so there have been different companies who have requested exemption, and there's been some controversy with it, and this is part of that, but this is the right decision on this equipment.
Do I have a motion to approve the resolution for the correction?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any other discussion or questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, that carries. Now we have a resolution for the correction of 2019 taxes for Lake State vending. Is this all kind of going in the same? Do you want to speak on
This
each of these?
one, Lake State Vending, is very similar. It is the same type of equipment, determined to be not accessible. So the resolution is requesting that the taxes be refunded.
Do I have
Motion to approve.
Second.
any question or discussion on this one? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. And then the last one for Jeff is the resolution for correction of 2019 taxes for Overlook Investments, LLC.
Yes, this account is different. This is a real estate parcel. And to give you a summary of this, our office was contacted from the Department of Revenue with a correction of error notice. And this is a manufacturing property. It was assessed by the Department of Revenue, and it was discovered to have non-existent improvements added to the new construction as of 2019. It was based on something the owner reported, and the Department of Revenue advised us later on that they caught the error, so we're correcting that error.
Okay.
Requesting that it be corrected.
Great. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Great. Any question or discussion?
Yeah, when you say,
Yep, go ahead, Mark.
Jeff, when you say that they had reported improvements, but then they didn't make the improvements, is that why
Yes.
it's,
Yes,
okay. That's it. Thank you.
you're welcome.
All right. Any other questions or comments? No? All right. All those that approve?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, that carries. All right, thank you so much, Mr. Yoder. All right, item number 8, the resolution for the Road to Recovery Grant. I believe Jay is going to speak a little about this.
Good evening, everyone. The Routes to Recovery Grant Resolution is in your packet. It is CARES Act money, federal dollars that are coming to us by way of the state of Wisconsin. There's a formula-based funding source that's where the $522,000 came from. So if you're wondering why that number, it's based on a population, and all municipalities within the state are guaranteed at least $5,000 of recovery funding. Our 522, we have had lots of staff meeting conversations. You can see in the resolution, it refers to emergency departments, departments that have emergency, so police and fire, for example, are included for sure, and public works, parks, and then also our utilities and water and sewer for anything that they have done over and above regular COVID kind of cleaning are included for reimbursement. So what this resolution does is when we receive the money, and we received $48,000 to date, $48,444 from the first reimbursement period, those monies can be sent back to the appropriate accounts. And item G in your resolution shows the accounts that they're going back to. I'm not sure if there are any questions, but before, I guess I'll just share one more number. We're about to make this week another request for $343,000. The $443,000 does include $258,000 worth of payroll and fringes. So this is an important number for us to help in 22 revenues. We are like 2020 revenues. We are likely to be down in significant measures in a lot of program areas, so the reimbursement of these dollars will go a long ways for making 2020 not quite so terrible from a end result of red or black at the end of the year. Also want to share that this is not an insignificant lift for staff to do. It's something that came at least midway through the whole COVID discussion. So the early March days, there was money available potentially through FEMA and discussions on how that process would go for reimbursement. This routes to recovery money is a little more straightforward than that, but still not without significant effort from your department heads and specifically the finance department. So Chief Kudek, Chief Moyler, and the department heads in the other emergency areas have really done a lot of good work to go back and estimate what they have spent on COVID-related areas for staffing, and then hard dollars for PPE, and the clerk area remodel, as you know, is being included along with the plexiglass and the rest of the program areas that we've installed. So we're going to be seeking reimbursement. We haven't received all the bills for those yet. You have to expend the monies and then seek reimbursement once you have the bills and paid and obviously in place. So we're still working through that process with our contractors who did the remodel. Those will likely be requested. Well, those will be requested in November 7th through the 18th funding formula time period. If there's any questions, there are department heads in the room that have worked on this to some great extent. Carrie is here as well. We can answer any detailed questions that you might have.
All right, go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, I just want to echo the kudos to all the department heads that did that extra work. Just from a business standpoint, I know what a pain in the butt that can be. Do you have any idea at this point? I know this is probably, you probably don't, but do you have any idea what we're looking like as far as this catching us up?
It will certainly help. I don't have a bottom line for you. I can tell you the program areas that we're going to be down in. We're certainly down in fines and forfeitures in the PD area. We're down in building permits as a whole with some of the commercial pauses that took place with some of the construction. We're up in a lot of numbers when it comes to building maintenance or building permit issuance, because lots of little projects are going on as people are remodeling their homes. But from the big picture standpoint, the really high dollar ones, we're likely to see a smaller number than what was anticipated in that area. The tourism tax, which does go to fund a portion of salaries in some program areas here at the city, is down significantly as hotel stays have been down in 2020 with many of the events being canceled and business travel being canceled as well. That program area is down significantly, and recreation as well in our park and rec area. The recreation fees revenue-wise is down. Conversely, our expenditures are down significantly in that program area as well, as they didn't hire some lifeguards and other seasonal staff for some of the programs.
Great,
but generally, Alderman Model, those are the areas that
I had a
were
constituent
down.
asking about it. I was just
That's fair.
to put it out there, yeah.
Alderman Bushlick?
Did the Public Works, or has the Public Works been asked whether their garbage collection has increased due to the fact that there has been so much yard work or work around the home now because of COVID-19. Is that a possibility of that being able to be used? I know I'm just reaching way out there, but I'm sure that there has been an increase.
It's a great question. There has been an increase. Doug and I have had a conversation about that. I glanced back at Kerry because I'm not sure if he submitted it as of yet. Do you know if Doug submitted? Okay. That we could look at past years and then current year and see. That's the charge that Doug and I have had. He said it wasn't significant dollars and cents wise. So, I mean, as you know, the tippage of that is even though the volume might be greater, the actual cost to dispose of the garbage isn't significantly greater. So it's probably not going to move the needle tens of thousands of dollars, but it's something that we'll keep talking about and see if we submit for reimbursement.
Okay.
I do
All right.
agree with you. That's more of a creative reimbursement request.
Yep. Yeah, it would be. All right. Thank you, Jay.
All the online shopping boxes you have to recycle.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any more discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, that carries. And then lastly, we're going to hear from Jay, or not quite last, I'm sorry. We have a resolution authorizing appropriations for 18th Avenue reconstruction and the special assessment revenues. I believe Max is going to speak to this.
Yes, thank you. So this item is relating to the 18th Avenue reconstruction and the assessment payment that the city started receiving in July relating to those assessments. So the funds that are coming into the city, we are asking that they be routed through account specifically identified for payments related to the project. And because we are still receiving invoices from the DOT for this, and once we have paid for all these invoices, if there are any leftover funds, we are asking that they're routed to continue with our pavement maintenance program and fix some roads, other roads throughout the city.
Do I have any questions for Max?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Any other comments? Brett?
Madam Chairwoman, I'd like to just state that given the fact that I reside in the area that was under the special assessment and the fact that I am financially obligated to pay that as special assessment, I will be respectfully abstaining from any vote or discussion in this matter.
Thank you, Alderman Berquist. Alderman Hoogaster?
Max and Brett, I know you probably could answer, but I'm not going to ask you it. So, how has it been going with the people in that area? I mean, it was a high pressure item. How has it been received? How has it been going with the people?
After the assessment passed at council, I have not heard from the residents directly regarding this this item. I know that they were passionate at the time.
Right.
The discussion was had, but I think that they're very respectful of the council decision and they accepted it. And I haven't heard any feedback from them to this point.
Okay, so basically, I was asking the payments are being made.
You asked-
The payments by the people are being
Oh,
made.
so according to the finance department, some payments have come in.
Okay.
I don't know all the details because there were some people that would go on different plans to
Sure.
go with 5 years or 10 years payments. So I don't know all the details of those arrangements. Those are being worked out through the finance department.
Okay. No, that answers my question. Thank you.
Okay.
Alderman Dolnick?
Max, maybe I'm misunderstanding this. The part in the second paragraph that remaining funds could be used for future pavement maintenance programs. Now, that doesn't mean that the assessment, that it almost sounds as though that if there's leftover assessment money, it's going to be used for something else. And instead of being refunded back to the people who are paying. Am I misunderstanding that?
Yes, a little bit. So, at the end of December 2019, we had all the invoices for the design, the actual construction, the consultant that did the contract administration and inspection on the job site. All these invoices were paid by the city, or whatever share the city had to pay on those invoices. The assessment was based on that final number in December 2019. Now, on top of that, the city has to pay for salaries and other expenses that actual employees of the DOT who have spent time working on the project, so we still have to pay for that. And we did not receive all of their invoices at that point, so that's why we keep receiving them. My experience with DOT projects like that, sometimes you can have invoices 5 years later, 8 years later, then that would be the final invoice by the time the DOT is done running their numbers. So, but also based on my experience, those actual invoices later represent a small amount compared to all the other costs that we had already. So we made the decision in December to base the assessment on what we had so far, and just instead of waiting 5 or 8 years until we get the final invoice from the DOT and have the assessment done at that point. So what it is here is that the funds that are coming back from the property owners for the assessment payments have already been expensed by the city. And so once those funds come back, the city could pretty much spend them wherever is needed. And we are proposing to spend them on road items. If the council feels they should be better spent on other programs, that would be fine. You guys can say something at this point and make that happen. But that's the proposal that we have at this point.
And Alderman Allen?
Same question, same answer. Thank
Okay.
you.
Do we have any other questions for Max? All right. If not, do I have a motion to?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. All right. A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Thanks,
Thank you.
Max. All right. And then last on the agenda is the approving of the 2021 capital budget and 5-year plan, and Jay is going to speak to us about that.
The 5-year CIP is included in your packet. For clarity, the item that you're being asked to review and approve tonight is for 2021. So the next 4 years that you see in your packet are for information. You're not by approval tonight approving and binding the council to the future expenditures on those years. I do want to start, and you have the information in your packet, but start with how our process goes internally. We do have department head meetings, department heads that have CIP, not the entire department head team meets when we meet regarding capital improvement projects. But we do meet pretty early on in the process. This year was a little messed up from its regular time schedule because of the COVID crisis that many departments were dealing with. So my apologies for bringing this 2 weeks later than what we originally included in our timeline, but I think it's a really solid 2021 CIP proposal. I do want to share with you that at the conclusion of the most recent department head meeting, there was consensus for the projects that are included in this document, and after pushing the department head team a bit, the consensus was really along the lines of consensus for the projects with the funds that we have available. So lots of projects that were proposed in 2021 found their way onto 2022 and 2023 lists, and department heads would have liked to have seen some of those projects funded in 2021, but it just isn't in the cards from what it does to our budget standpoint. This year already, by including the 7th Avenue expenditure with a significant number tied to it, we are certainly borrowing, I'll say way more, but more than we have the last year. So historically, the borrowing would ebb and flow quite a bit in West Bend, and in order to rein in some debt, there was a period of time where we were borrowing as low as $1.5 million. That was then increased to, and not that long ago, during my this is my fifth budget year, tenure, it was increased to $2 million, and then $2.5 million, and then to the $3 million. So the $3 million number is a number that previous councils have encouraged us to spend. Of that $3 million, $2 million directly on roads, and then $1 million for the rest of the departments. And then again, previous councils have put this plan in place where we take care of 2 of the main corridors in 2021 and 2022 respectively. So those borrowing amounts are included in this CIP for 2021, and if you look at the 2022 one, you'll see the 18th Avenue as a placeholder for increased borrowing as well for that year. There are many department heads in the room that were a part of that process and discussion. Those projects we can discuss or try to answer questions about in more detail. We do have a brief program description for each of those that's included in your packet. If you have any questions, I can attempt to answer them at this time.
Does anyone have any questions for Jay? Mr. Alderman Allen?
Yeah, there's a number of big dollar vehicle purchases. Patrol, IHC patrol truck at 100 or 215. A chipper truck at 112, and a Braun ambulance for the fire department at $275K. I thought when we in the 2020 budget, we sort of implied we were going to look at leases for these. Has that not proved to be a better vehicle to move stuff out of the capital budget and into the operating budget?
So the lease that I'll take a stab at answering, and Carrie can jump in if need be. The lease that was approved and the discussion last year was really focused around that really expensive ladder truck. So instead of trying to insert $1.1 million into either any 1 year or 2 year budget and really soaking up a bunch of the leftover $1 million that was available for the other departments besides engineering and roads, the decision was made to lease that vehicle for 10 years and spread that cost out. We do not have that cost included in the 2021 CIP, because then we'd be like borrowing for it twice. The decision to lease last year was with the understanding that we were going to use leftover funds in any given year if there were funds available at the end of the year to make that payment, or if it's a combination in a future year, or fund balance. And so, as you know, in 2019 we ended up in the red. 2020 we're not sure about yet. We don't have a 2020 lease payment yet for the truck because it takes so long to build the thing. We'll have our first lease payment for the fire vehicle in 2021, and we'll be using those 2 funding sources as available for that payment. I don't recall a conversation in any detail about leasing additional vehicles. We are going into, and we're actually out for RFP right now on the passenger vehicles. I'll say we put our toe in the water with leasing with the truck, and we're taking a further step into the water with the passenger vehicles, the ancillary vehicles around City Hall. There is that capability and possibility. There are leasing companies that would do that, perform that service for us. We just haven't explored it in any great detail at this time.
Any other questions for Jay? Alderman Model?
This capital list does seem like it's well, of course it continues to grow. It's just the nature of capital expenditures, I suppose. But moving forward, with the idea that it does seem like West Bend is starting to see a little bit of action, businesses moving in, some more residential. Is 1 million a year after we spend the 2 on roads? Does that seem like a reasonable number, or do you think there's a way that we can boost that at some point?
That's a loaded question. Reasonable number to who? If you ask the department heads that are waiting for items, I would say they probably would say that's not a reasonable number. Long term, it is a reasonable number for our current funding formulas, and we talk about this often at the council floor, that we need to fit whatever debt service levy that is approved into our 2 equations, the expenditure restraint equation and the levy limit equation. And currently, this number will fit, and we have the projections. Phil included them at his last presentation to you into the 2021 budget without seeing too much of an increase, even with the additional borrowing in 2021 because of the debt that's falling off. Long-term, long-winded answer to your question.
It's okay.
Long-term, as TID Health continues to improve, we may have more money freed up, if you will, in the city as a whole to fund some of these additional projects.
Without adjusting that formula?
Well, the formula would get adjusted, but with maybe shifting more money from operating levy to debt levy.
Yeah. Well, the formula is relative, so I suppose it wouldn't have to change that much. Anyways, yeah, great. Great, thank you.
Great. Any other questions for Jay? All right. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, that carries. And with no other further business before the Finance Board, I adjourn.
Good evening. I will call to order the City of West Bend Common Council meeting for September 14th. Note that we have a quorum present with Alderman Kaler absent and excused. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, I'll note that we have 26 items on the agenda, the first being approval of the Common Council minutes regular meeting for August 3rd.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Butchlick, second by Model. Any discussion or corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And then item number 2, Common Council minutes for the regular meeting of August 17th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I got Model and Allen. Thank you. Any discussion or corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And then we'll have a motion for the consent agenda consisting of items 3 through 15.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Model and Allen again. Any discussion or corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And I'll just take a quick moment. I know they were here earlier, but I do want to give a special thank you to all the volunteers who are helping with the all-inclusive playground. They've been putting in a lot of work in the background, and we're excited to see those next steps. Moving on to agenda items for consideration. Item number 16, a resolution accepting a donation from Mary and John Bartol to the Police Department. Chief.
Sure. The Mr. and Mrs. Bartol sent a donation of $50 with the request that it go to our crime prevention programming and supplies. So the request is that that money be appropriated to that fund.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. It's been motion second by Allen and Hoochester. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, and thank you to them. And then we have a resolution requesting the reappropriation of funds for recycled brass. Chief.
Yeah, we took a couple years' worth of our brass that we've recovered from our outdoor range and want that money reappropriated to our revenue account, to our training supply account to repurchase or to purchase some firearm supplies.
Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Hoochester, second by Allen. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks, Chief. Moving on to item number 18, relocate polling locations for November 3rd, 2020 general election. And we'll have a brief summary from our clerk, Stephanie Justman. Steph.
Good evening. I am just requesting for the November 3rd general election that we move District 1, Meadowbrook Manor, from Meadowbrook Drive to Washington County Courthouse, 332 East Washington Street, and also that we move District 8 from Cedar Ridge Drive to West Bend City Hall at 1115 South Main Street. Them are the only two changes that I'm requesting for the November election.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to that effect?
Second.
Motion by Dolnick, second by Butchlick. Any questions, comments?
Yes.
I'll start with Kennedy and then Al.
Stephanie, were there any issues during the previous elections that had smaller turnout? Having like two districts here at City Hall. I know 8 is here, and I believe 4 is already here. Mm-hmm. So was there any time like a lot of congestion or issues in the parking lot?
No. District 8 here, we had 113 voters. At District 4, I think they were like 250. So, and typically during a general election, we can have 200 voters an hour at District 4 itself. So that wasn't any issue with congestion. I did hear some complaints after the election day about not wearing masks and stuff, so it was hard for people to understand that the voters did not have to wear a mask, but that the poll workers were told they needed to wear a mask. So I tried to get the word out, and I wasn't aware of anything till after election day. So,
but like parking wise and things, accessibility, we think we have enough for all the districts to park. And
I really do have cooperation from department heads that we move our city vehicles out of the way for that election. I'm thinking that it might be double of what we had for August, but for people that are voting at the polling location, I think with the number of absentees I have on file already, that it will not nearly be what we've had other years. There'll be more absentee voting. Like
Great.
It was 94% of the people for the August election voted by absentee, so.
Thank you.
Alderman Allen.
Yes. I was one of the people who complained about the District 2 location. I'm glad that it's moving back to the library where it can be better controlled. But you now have 2 precincts voting at county facilities, and even your poll workers made statements that, well, it's a county building, we don't have to wear masks.
I wasn't aware of that until you had brought it to my attention, so I will address it.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we do have a motion second, so all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Move on to item number 19. A hot topic tonight, ordinance allowing dogs in city parks. Mike Yench, take it away.
All right, thank you, Mayor. The discussion of dogs in parks has been an ongoing discussion for many years. In recent years, in 2015 and 16, the ordinance was updated allowing dogs on a 6-foot leash in Ridge Run and Glacier Blue Hills. The current ordinance was updated in May of 2019, allowing leashed dogs on a Riverwalk, Old Settlers Park, and Vest Pocket Park downtown. Many of those changes at that point in time really made a lot of sense. Old Settlers, Vest Pocket, the Riverwalk along Veterans Avenue, those are basically sidewalks in a lot of those areas. So to not allow dogs in those parks at that point in time really didn't make a lot of sense. So changing the ordinance in 2019 really made a lot of sense for those areas. And we had a lot of support for businesses and residents in the downtown area to walk their dogs in our river walks and things, river walk section. So 2019 was the most recent change. This summer, the Park and Recreation Commission discussed this ordinance in great detail and voted on the proposed ordinance that you have before you this evening. The proposed ordinance would allow dogs in all city parks on a 6-foot or less leash, except for the following locations: Regner Park, Lac Loran Conservancy, any park buildings, areas posted as no dogs allowed by the Parks Department, and at designated special events. Those are just the highlights. The details are in your packet. As a department, or let me back up here. At the commission meetings, discussion, Regner Park, with the many different activities in Regner Park, the swim pond, splash pad, athletic fields, basketball, anything and everything that's going on in that park is so busy that some of the commissioners felt that Regner Park may not be very suitable for dogs in the park, even on a 6-foot leash. At the July commission meeting, we had the board president and many board members from the Friends of Lac Loran at that meeting, and they all asked not to have dogs out at Lac Loran Conservancy for many different issues. Some of the trails are narrow, where if you're walking your dog, you might come face to face with a dog, things like that. Many of those trails are in the woods or the prairies. So that was one of the concerns. Also, the concern from their board would be the impact on wildlife and things like that at the Conservancy. Paul Deschamps, the president of the Friends of Lac Loran, did mention some scientific research that he had read and had available in reference to possible impact it might have on birds and wildlife out at the Conservancy. They kind of review the Conservancy as a conservancy and not an active use park. So that's kind of the reasoning a little bit, the highlights behind Regner Park and Lac Loran Conservancy. In park buildings, you'll look at the Marin Center again out at Lac Loran. Okay, for example, I'll take the cabin out at Ridge Run or the Camp Lodge in Regner Park. Those are facilities where we might not want dogs. We don't need dog hair and things like that in the buildings. It costs us more money for cleaning, et cetera, et cetera. So every time someone rents one of our facilities, if this ordinance passes, we would just communicate that to them when they pick up their keys, when they get their rental agreement, things like that. Because one of the goals if there's any changes this evening, we don't want to start adding tens of thousands of dollars worth of signs in parks and things. It's a park, not an interstate. We don't need all kinds of signs saying you can have your dog here but not here and your dog here. It gets too difficult for our customers to understand, for our staff, enforcement from the police department, and things like that. The fourth item I mentioned, areas posted as no dogs allowed by the Parks Department. Right now, we have no plan on putting up like extra signs around any park facility or anything like that. We would follow this ordinance. Regner Park, no dogs. Lac Loran, no dogs. No dogs in any park buildings. To us, that's pretty black and white. Easy for us to understand, easy for our customers to understand. Again, the commissioners kind of put that in there, so we did have a problem area. We could close a certain area, a certain park or something like that to the dogs, maybe temporarily or something like that. If we would ever do something like that, we would obviously communicate it to staff, the police department, et cetera. So it would have to take an extreme case as to why we would want to close a certain property or part of a property for dogs. There would have to be some situation. And then also the last item noted in the proposed ordinance change is no dogs at designated special events. So if we have the Columns Run Walk over at Riverside Park, okay, it's a fundraiser for the high school scholarship programs. They may not want dogs as part of their special events. We would put up temporary signage just for that event. If there are other, the Barton Business Association, they had an event this last weekend up on the upper overlook and things like that. If they did not want dogs during that event, we would put up temporary signs that say no dogs at this event. It would be up to the event holders if they would like to, if they want dogs or don't want dogs. Some events up in Barton, they have a dog day in Barton. Great, but some events may not want that. So we would leave that choice up to our customers. The Park and Recreation Commission also asked that if this ordinance was passed, that staff would review the ordinance with the commission in 1 year. Take a look at the pros and cons, if we had issues or concerns or anything else like that over this 1 year trial period or whatnot. So I can tell you, the properties we have where we allow dogs already, Ridge Run, Glacier Blue Hills, downtown to Riverwalk, I am not aware of any issues really. I've never been in contact with the police department about a dog issue on the Riverwalk or anything else like that. I haven't. Chief is here and he can speak to enforcement or issues or anything. I can tell you, since those ordinances have passed, I have not been involved with the police department with any issues on those properties. So with that being said, I guess I would take any questions.
Oh. First, we don't have a motion on this item, so I'll ask for that and then we'll open up for comments.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. It's been motion seconded by Allen and Model. Okay, I saw Berquist first.
Mike, do you know, since this proposal hit the local news media, has your department fielded any feedback from constituents as far as the matter?
Our office staff, they've taken a handful of phone calls. I've taken one phone call and one email since our July Park Commission meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, then Model and the Butchlick.
Yeah, Chief, any issues with the change that we did last year in 2019?
I can yell from here, no.
Okay. I didn't think so, just checking.
Great.
Also, and I agree with everything you guys are doing, including those exemptions. I just hope people can be responsible dog owners and continue to do whatever you're doing right so far. Thank you.
Great. Alderman Butchlick.
Yeah, I'm going to view my opinion on dogs in the park. I'm not an animal hater and I'm not a dog hater. But when I heard that dogs were going to be possibly allowed in the dog parks, I was at Riverside Park just a week later, and supposedly there was a dog running in the Riverside Park, no leash, just running free as a bird or as a dog, do his duties, ran off in tall grass, came back, and nobody even made any effort to go to check what the dog did. A week later, I'm mowing grass at my work. I come across another dog, had to be there because there was a little present for me. And last week, again, mowing lawn, one of my tractor tires had another present located on it. And I know that's not all dog people. I know, but there are people that are inconsiderate with their dogs that do not clean up after their dogs. And if we're going to allow dogs in the park, we are going to probably open it. And I know the chief says he doesn't have any complaints. I certainly am not going to call the police department and say, we've got a dog here in the park. So what? I'll just let them do it. And hopefully that they get the message sooner or later. But anyway, I am just not in favor. I've had a couple people email me and call me and said they are definitely against it. We have a dog park in the city. The park department has put a lot of effort. It's a great dog park. It's used an awful lot. And I think if we did not have that available, I guess I would not have a problem with dogs in the park. But we do. We have a place for them to be. And I am not going to be in favor of it. I'm sorry, because I just feel there are people that are irresponsible and just don't clean up after it, and it just makes it bad for the rest of them. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Alderman Dolnick.
Several years ago, I adopted a stretch of the Eisenbahn, and I'd go out there every week and pick up litter. And I mean, I can tell you, as Alderman Butchlick was just alluding to, there are some dog owners who are not responsible, and I was a witness to it because I had to clean some stuff up on occasion or shovel it off down the ravine, or pick up. They would leave it in a little baggie for me. They wouldn't take the baggie with them. But as Mike, you said that, I mean, we can always repeal this, and
Correct.
You're going to keep track. and this has been debated about for years. I'm willing to give it a chance. I would not hesitate to vote to repeal if the dog owners are not cooperating. There are always going to be some, but I guess it's to the degree of what you find. I did have a question for you. Can you hear me okay, by
Yes,
the way?
absolutely, yes.
Okay. Any park building. Now, I made a quick check. You've got, Barton Park has a shelter, open-air shelter. I don't know if you have any others in the system that aren't at Regner, but, so you're not going to allow, see, I'm thinking about if there's a gathering, a family gathering, a birthday party, whatever, people might want to bring their dogs, but you would not allow them in the open-air shelters?
The open-air shelters would be included in this ordinance as a building, so they would not be allowed in open-air shelters. We have open-air shelters in Barton, Regner, and many other neighborhood parks. We have small 20 by 20 shelters, things like that. I personally don't see, if someone's having a birthday party and it's raining and they all gather underneath an open-air shelter, I don't foresee any issues with the dog under that shelter. When we reviewed this at the commission level, also with Ian a little bit, how do we, is it park building, is it park building and shelter, are shelters included? The park building covers park buildings, open air shelters, and a park building. If someone has the Pick Pavilion at Ridge Run Park, rented, and they have a small little dog underneath that shelter, we are not worried about that. It's the buildings like Quas Creek Park, the buildings carpeted, the Camp Lodge and Regner Park, things like that. So, but at the same time, we don't need 30 dogs underneath the Barton shelter. So, like any rule or ordinance, is there always going to be black and white? Yeah, maybe, maybe not. But in this ordinance, a shelter is, open air shelter is a building. So.
All right, Alderman Kennedy?
Yeah, I just did want to address John's question or statement. I mean, to me, this is a really good middle ground to allow people to walk their leashed dogs in a park, in their neighborhood park. I know your question or point about having Rolf's Dog Park. This isn't to turn all parks into a dog park. The person in your district that runs their dog freely in the park is already in violation. Clearly, they're doing it without any care or concern already. So there are people that obviously are not great pet owners, but all the great pet owners out there that are not able to walk their dog in the park, now that hopefully they will be able to and do so responsibly. So this isn't to make everything a dog park. This is so leashed dogs can walk and enjoy the park with their owners. I know for one, I have a dog. I cannot use Villa Park as part of my walking path because he's not welcome there. My dog's a 9-year-old dog. Taking him to the dog park would be like taking Grandpa to a wrestling match. That's not going to happen. He wouldn't enjoy it. It's not a good place for him. He enjoys being on a walk with me and just liking to look at the nature and sniff. I understand people are not responsible pet owners, but I don't think that outweighs who is responsible in our city. It's just going to make it kind of more like sidewalks, I guess, which are already public spaces that dogs can use. The intent is also to kind of allow for a more diverse population of West Bend residents to be able to walk their dogs and enjoy nature. Millennials in general are having kids later in their years. According to a study, 7 out of 10 millennials own a pet. More than half, 56%, are dog owners. 67% of millennials consider their pet a fur baby. So I know that West Bend, we already have 10 groomers here in West Bend. So we do have obviously a lot of people that are dog friendly. Also, I know diversity, 7 out of 10 LGBTQ adults also own a pet. In the most recent mission and vision for the city, I know a lot of people talked about, attracting diverse populations of constituents, and I really think that this is a small step that will attract a more, or open up our parks to a more diverse population, and it's a very low cost measure to kind of hopefully encourage some diversity. So I am very much in support of this.
Thank you. I'll go to Berquist and the model.
Thank you, sir. To piggyback with my question of Mike earlier, I reached out to some of my constituents in District 3 concerning this matter, and those who replied to me, the results of my unofficial poll were 3-1 against the resolution. I actually got an email from one such resident who gave me his name and said I could use it, but I won't, stating that he believes that there are already adequate accommodations for residents to use the parks with their dogs. He just wanted me to express to the council that not all residents are, quote, dog lovers, and that they need to be, or that we need to allow additional access to the parks. And he says it's not welcomed and not needed by all. He said this was evident in photographs he sent to me of an afternoon he had at Royal Oaks Park, showing dogs running around unleashed in a park that was signed no pets in city parks. So to stay true to my promise to my constituents to vote their preferences and not my own, I will respectfully vote no for this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Model?
Yeah, you made a lot of excellent points, Megan, and making the distinction about Ralph's Park, I think is really important too. I've got a couple of Jack Russells, and it's nice to have a place that I can take them and just let them run, because I really can't do that when they're leashed. There's no way I could possibly keep up with them. So, has there been any discussion, Mike? I know we're doing it downtown with dog waste stations. It seems to me like people do around the city sponsoring benches. Is there been any talk about people being able to possibly sponsor dog waste stations in the various parks?
Yes, actually,
Assuming this
we just recently had a discussion with the family about that exact thing. Right now, I mean, again, if the ordinance is passed, we would look at getting the existing signs down, some new signage up, and then eventually incorporating some of the bag stations and things like that. How many would it be? What the cost would be? I don't have those specifics. I can tell you in the downtown area, the bid board has already voted unanimously to support the installation of some dog bag stations. Again, we have a lot of trash receptacles already in our park system. So we're looking at downtown, and downtown's a little different, little tighter, community down there, where we don't want just a dog waste station maybe outside of someone's business. So what we're doing down there is just a dog bag stations is what we're doing. So your dog went to the bathroom, you can grab a bag. We have plenty of general trash receptacles downtown, like emptied twice a week during the summer, once a week during the winter. We have the same thing in all of our parks. We have plenty of trash receptacles, things like that. So if we would, Megan brought up Villa Park. I'm gonna grab Villa Park. We would probably put a dog bag station up near the playground area, not next to the playground, but close, a high use area, something close to the pavilion up there. Something that if you're somewhere in the property, your dog goes to the bathroom, you don't have a bag. Most people carry a bag with them, things like that. But you can physically see it from many different parts of the property. We would start implementing things like that. So I think the downtown, working with the downtown bid board and getting that going, I think that's a great step in the right direction for down there.
Well, and it gets us familiar with where to go and what to do and all that. Yeah.
And, gets people used to them and, hey, and once they know they're there, they're going to know where they're at. So.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Dolnick?
Brett, when you say the count was 3-1, what numbers are we talking about here? Did you hear from a dozen people or?
Not a lot of responses, but again, of the ones that I did receive, they were 3-1.
So it could have been 4 or 5.
It could be, yes.
Okay.
I think it was a dozen people.
I just want to get some perspective on it. Thank you.
It wasn't the total number of the
Did I see your hand up, Butchlick? Okay. Alderman Allen?
One of the, I guess this is more a comment than a question, but the Rolf's Dog Park doesn't do the same function as allowing dogs in Villa Park, because there's an expectation in Rolf's that those dogs are not leashed. They actually behave better when they're not leashed in a confined space.
Right.
So you get a dog on a leash in there, you're asking for trouble.
Right.
And they actually ask you not to leash your dogs in that park. And so there are people with dogs that actually need to be on leashes. They don't have the ability to romp and play to the same extent. So I strongly favor the ordinance.
That's a good point.
Thank you.
Can I just
Any other comments? Yes.
Just one more thing. I know that Brett said he sent an email out to his constituents, and my constituency does have a Facebook page where we discussed it. And I just wanted to say I got about 28 comments, and I would say 1 or 2 of the people were against it. The rest were all fingers crossed, here's hoping, things like that. So it could just be a different demographic. It could be what parks you're near, but I mean, I would say my constituency felt pretty good about it.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, we do have a motion second. I'm going to ask for a roll call vote, Steph, if you can.
Alderman Butchlick,
No.
Alderman Allen,
Yes.
Alderman Berquist,
No.
Alderman Dolnick, Alderman Hoogaster,
Yes.
Alderman Model,
Yes.
Alderman Kennedy.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-2.
Thank you. And that motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, move on to item number 20, a resolution authorizing the transfer of library funds for Library Recreation Center project. We're going to have a brief presentation by our library director, Amy Salmonen. Welcome.
Hello. Good evening. The West Bend Community Memorial Library Board is seeking the approval to transfer a total of $150,000 from Library Board controlled funds to a capital projects fund for the Library Recreation Center. Along with generous donations from various community partners, the Recreation Fund balance, and the West Bend Community Memorial Library building funds, the library fund balance accounts will be used toward the expenses for Phase 1 construction, which includes a lobby, a dance studio, and a multipurpose room and restrooms. These rooms will be used by both departments to enhance programming.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? This should be a project we're pretty familiar with. Otherwise, yep, thank you.
All right.
Got motion by Model, second by Berquist. Any other questions, anything? Yes, sir.
This isn't having any effect on your operating budget at all, is it?
No, this is from fund balance.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Awesome. Thanks, Amy. Thanks
you.
for joining us. And number 21, resolution for the routes recovery grant. Anything else on this, Jay? Otherwise, you covered it? Okay. And I'm just looking for a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion by Model, second by Allen. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And we'll move on to reports, starting with item number 22, a report by Alderman Berquist regarding the library board meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The last library board meeting was held on August 18th. We were briefed by the library director on current operations of the library. Curbside service is being used, but not to the extent anticipated. But she said that those who do utilize the service are very appreciative of it being offered. Discussion was held concerning the quarantine of books received from outside services. Questions were asked of the Washington County Library Services study that was pending at the time. That report has since been completed and will be discussed at a later board meeting. The board approved the bid for the Recreation Center HVAC work, which we're aware of. We've had some action on it in the last meetings, and also authorized the transfer of funds for the entire Recreation Center project in the amount of $150,000 from various library accounts to the city. That's what we just did. New business included preliminary budget discussions and the topic of the library's status within the city's department classifications. The next meeting is scheduled for tomorrow, this 14th of September. Thank you.
Great. Any questions for Alderman Berquist? Yes, sir.
Not a question, a comment. I'd like to once again thank the library for their active support of the electronic media distribution program that they have. It's once you get it set up, it's really simple. Also, a reminder that this is Renew Your Library Card Month. So renew your library card.
Great. I'm sure Amy appreciates it.
I saw a thumb.
All right. Move on to item number 23, a report by either Alderman Hoogister or Kennedy regarding the Park and Recreation Commission meeting.
I can grab that quick. Obviously, we talked a little bit about dogs in parks for a minute here tonight. That was something that came out of our recent parks meeting. Also, the universally inclusive playground. We've been doing great work on that, and obviously, a lot of our group came and supported here tonight the universal playground project. That is something that's been going on in Parks and Rec. And we have our next upcoming meeting on Thursday night. It's 6:30 if anybody would like to join us.
Great. Any questions for Alderman Kennedy? Otherwise, we'll move on to item number 24, a report by Alderman Dolnick or Hoogister regarding the Planning Commission.
I'll be taking it.
Thank you.
We met on the 1st, and actually one of the items that we were going to discuss was a request to rezone the former concrete plant on Sand Drive, and that was tabled at the last minute, or I'm sorry, withdrawn from the agenda at the last minute by the petitioner. They have to get some more ducks in a row, I guess you would say, and we'll be seeing that again sometime in the future. You'll be seeing some facade changes at the at 111 to 117 Main Street downtown. Robert W. Baird, the former Cafe Surratt building. They're going to be renovating the front of the building, making it look nicer. We tabled a site plan approval for an industrial storage facility on Decorah near University. It was a over a 5-acre parcel, 10,600 square foot building. However, that had to be tabled due to some site plan issues that had to be resolved. And finally, we approved the final plat and grading for an addition to the Creekside subdivision in my district, and that will be 25 new residential single-family homes.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Alderman Dolnick? Seeing none, we'll move on to number 25, a report by Alderman Model regarding the downtown bid board meeting.
Sure. The bid is continuing its marketing campaign. That's doing really well. There's a third video that just started running. That's getting a lot of feedback. The marketing campaign in general is getting really a lot of positive feedback and generating some leads, so that's great. We discussed the operating budget, and that's on its way to council. I think the next council meeting will be looking at the operating budget for bid. We discussed more the historic, potentially establishing a historic district downtown, which I say potentially, but I assume we're going to do that. There's not a whole lot of downside, but it's a long process. We're just in the early stages, so that's gonna take a minute. We're also discussing expanding the Christmas decor. As I'm sure everybody remembers, we had an amazing Christmas display last year downtown, and of course we're looking to build on that, and definitely looking for community support. And if you have thoughts on that, please contact Mike Huzar. I'm sure he'll appreciate me saying that. And the fall landscape is in, and is it completely done, the fall landscape downtown?
I think there might still be some mums that are coming in. And
Okay, yeah, still working on installation there, but it looks great already, so that's about it.
Thank you. Any questions for Alderman Model? Seeing none, we'll go to last but not least, item 26, a report by Alderman Allen regarding the Airport Commission.
Yeah, the Airport Commission met last Thursday, September 10th. We reviewed the calendar year 2021 budget submission. We reviewed Ordinance 2863, which is an amendment to Chapters 9 and 19 of the Municipal Code. This allows animal control on an emergency basis by airport staff. It separates the airport property from herd management functions, and it's an FAA requirement. So we already took action on that. The Airport Commission was happy. We reviewed the updated airport master plan. One of the things that's recently changed is they've determined the design aircraft runway length for, what is it? It's the 1331 runway, the main runway that's mostly east-west. I'm sorry.
Runway 624 would be the.
Is it 624? I thought it was the, oh, okay. Any rate, they've determined that needs to be 5,300 feet long. That will allow 75% of the current business jet fleet to operate to locations throughout the continental United States. Basically 1,500 nautical miles. That percentage of the business jet fleet that's serviced at that runway length will actually increase over time as aircraft become more performant. So the older planes drop out of the fleet and newer, more performant ones come in. The other item is was the airport manager's report. Mike Shaw delivered this. He's working with the Ozaki Washington Land Trust on cutting down the approach area to runway 31. The runway 6 approach cut is scheduled for this winter once it freezes. The Toro mower has had quite a few repairs, but it's working fine now. He did caution that it may be nearing the point where we may need to look at replacement as a better option than further repairs. Everything else is currently up and running well. He also is planning to get the west side gate opener replacement prior to winter. The new gate opener that was previously installed on the other gate is working just wonderfully. They're very happy with it. So, and then there was they're working with the FCC to change the Unicom frequency due to the large amount of traffic on the current 122.8 megahertz frequency. The Unicom does things like key on landing lights and so on. And we're getting keyed on for people that are, trying to land at airports far, far away, largely because planes are now carrying better radios.
That's not good.
So it's just a few hoops that need to be jumped through, not a big deal. And then the next Airport Commission meeting will be December 10th at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time in the Common Council chambers.
Awesome. Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
Is that extension you're talking about? Is that you're gonna build a longer runway? Is that
Yes.
the big one that's been discussed for years, or is that?
Yes.
What's the timeline on
that? Construction next year.
I think
would
Administrator
begin
Shambo
as
can
soon
fill
as
you.
next year, I believe.
5 to 7 years.
No.
It'll take.
So
some
it's
time.
a long term, but the first construction.
Yeah, I get it. I was
would-
just wondering what the. Okay.
The maintenance that Alderman Allen is referring to will be taking place next year. On
Okay.
Some of the program.
Okay, I had a
areas.
feeling that wasn't. Yeah. Okay. All right. 5 to 7 years. All right. Good. Thank you.
Any other questions for Alderman Allen? Seeing none, before we get into announcements, I'll just update scheduling for the 2021 budget planning. Administrator Shambo and department heads are still meeting and working on it. At our regular meeting on October 5th, we'll have a budget presentation by him. Then I'm requesting a special meeting on October 12th at 6 o'clock to do a budget roundtable. No other items on the agenda, just us discussing the budget together. And then at the regular meeting on November 2nd, we'll have the budget come for final approval. So that'll give us a good month plus a week to review that. So I just want to let everybody know. I'll open up if there's any announcements. Yep, I'm sorry.
Mayor Jenkins, if I
Yep.
may interrupt.
Did I get the dates wrong?
Well, I think I might have given you the impression it was the 2nd. The 9th is when
Oh, is it 9th? Okay.
for the budget.
Even more time. Got it. Well, the 9th is our regular meeting, right? Special meeting is October 12th at 6. Yep. All right. Any announcements for the good of the order? Going once, going twice.
Thank Justice for the Barton Festival
Yeah.
and putting that on, and I heard you raised some good money for Barton, so really excited to see that.
We did, and thank you very much for all the volunteers that came out and the local constituency that continues to support us.
It was a good time. Thank you. Seeing as there's no further business for the common council, I'll adjourn by the call of the chair. Have a great night.